Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I'm your host Mariam Shabir and you are watching Hum Aur Hamara Mahol, which is about environment and climate change, of course. And today we have with us Canadian High Commissioner to Pakistan, Her Excellency Ms. Wendy Gilmore. Thank you very much, Ms. Wendy Gilmore, for joining us. Starting about the issues around climate and environment, I first want to learn about how Canada is pursuing its goals of clean and green agenda or growth.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. This is an incredibly important organization for Pakistan, so I'm really pleased not only to have the chance to talk to you, but to talk to you about the environment and climate change and climate action. So in Canada, our current government and frankly the Canadian population is very seized by the challenges posed by climate change. Like Pakistan, Canada is a country that is affected badly by climate change. I think Pakistan's in the top 10 countries in the world that are impacted by climate change. In Canada, our Arctic, so north of 60 degrees latitude, is warming at twice the rate of the rest of the world. So it does have some fairly significant effects. So our government has adopted a climate action plan, which is holistic at the national level and then also translated down to our provincial levels of government. And that includes a number of different elements, including addressing emissions, so transport, industrial emissions, trying to improve regulations to ensure that energy is produced efficiently using clean technologies. And it's also putting a price on pollution, is the way our government describes it. So it's pricing the carbon emissions, and that presumably will provide an incentive for people to then reduce emissions. So it really is a wholesale plan.
So what do you think that how Pakistan can learn few of the things from that clean and green growth plan which Canada is following? Do you think that is implementable for Pakistan as well?
I think some elements. I mean, each country has to come up with its own climate action plan that's specific to its requirements. So in Canada, we have a very advanced industrial economy, but we also have considerable primary industries, agricultural, forestry industries, mining. And so for us, it's about regulating those industries so that they can operate as efficiently and with the least amount of emissions possible. I think in Pakistan, there is a similar number of initiatives. It's obviously more challenging because Pakistan is a developing economy. You don't have the same type of regulations for transport usage, for example, emissions on vehicles and others. These are very closely regulated in Canada. But I think there are some efforts along that line that are being done by the government at both federal and provincial level here in Pakistan, and probably more to be done as well. But I've been really encouraged by what I've seen with the reforestation agenda, the Billion Tree Tsunami in particular, which I think even Canada could learn from. I mean, we have a lot of areas of our forestry industry does have an effort to replant following harvesting of trees, but I think all countries could learn a little bit from the Billion Tree Tsunami program.
You were talking about vehicular emission that Canada is doing very proactively in their country to control that. Pakistani government is trying to reduce air pollution from vehicular emissions, and Prime Minister has recently announced that by 2030 we'll be able to get 30% electric vehicles. So how Canada can partnership with Pakistan when it comes to technological advancement in this regard?
Well, certainly on a commercial level, we have many companies in Canada that are investing in clean technologies and the development of more fuel-efficient vehicles, electric vehicles. These are areas that Canadian companies are well advanced in. In the High Commission, we have a trade promotion program, and we're trying to encourage Canadian companies to come and engage with their Pakistani counterparts to try and increase the use of these technologies. But we also have to recognize that a lot of what is unique about Canada is our winter. So for 6 months of the year, we have to have vehicles and transport systems that can operate at temperatures that are below zero. And that brings with it some very particular challenges. The Canadian government has actually put in place a target that I believe by 2030 we want 90% of our electricity to be generated by clean technologies. So wind, hydropower, which is the biggest that we use at the moment, and solar. And that's something that we're also cooperating with in Pakistan. We have a couple of Canadian companies that are here investing already in renewable energy sources. And that's in the wind farms north of Karachi and in solar generation in Punjab and elsewhere. So that's very exciting.
That's great to hear. Pakistan is also doing to tackle with plastic pollution mess, and Minister for Climate Change has just announced that we're putting ban on single-use plastic on starting from August 14. So how Canada can help us or partnership with us to reduce this? What kind of model Canada is opting to reduce plastic or minimize it?
So I think Pakistan is actually ahead of Canada in this regard. So maybe we should be learning from you. There's various initiatives underway to try and reduce plastic usage, particularly single-use plastic. But I was, in fact, sending back to Canada the news. Hunza, as a district, has banned the use of plastic already. Gilgit-Baltistan, as an area, is working its way to the other districts. We saw the commitment made by Prime Minister Khan, and I'm really encouraged by that. Here at the High Commission, we have a number of initiatives underway, including one where we partnered with a local NGO, with a Canadian company, Second Cup, the coffee company, to try and switch from the use of plastic bags to using cotton canvas bags. There's a number of other initiatives like that. So that's really good news. I think all of us, frankly, on an individual level, can do our part to use refillable bottles, don't use single-use plastic straws, to not use plastic bags. It really is an individual responsibility that will translate into larger action.
That's great. So when it comes to creating resilience for women and children regarding climate crisis in Pakistan, how Canada can partnership with Pakistan?
Yeah. So I think that's an incredibly important area. Canada's development program is at its heart a feminist international assistance policy. What that means is that we center our development efforts around women and girls, for everything from our poverty alleviation efforts, education, health, and adaptation and resilience. Women and girls, especially in developing countries here in Pakistan, are one of the most vulnerable sectors of the population. They're also ones with the greatest impact on domestic waste, family usage. And so by looking at how climate change is going to impact women and girls, we can, number one, help encourage their resilience, so addressing economic opportunity, adaptation for existing household activities, but also agricultural activities, but then putting at our heart sort of how do we understand how climate change is impacting women and girls so that they can then manage themselves to, as I say, to adapt, to be more resilient. It's incredibly important. It's the heart of everything that we do in our development assistance program.
So we do face, when I talk about Pakistan and climate crisis, we face with droughts, floods, and many other, like recently we just faced with sandstorms and flash floods, and due to which the crops were damaged. So in that area, how we can partner with Canada to help build resilience of community in one aspect, and in second aspect I would like to know about the technological cooperation. Do you think that current government's plan for constructed dams and supporting coal power plants would be good?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of different questions in there. Starting from the clean energy perspective, in Canada, we have made a commitment by 2030 to try and eliminate the use of coal-fired electricity. Well, maybe not eliminate, I think we're down to 10%, as I said, 10%. So 90% of our electricity would be generated from clean or renewable sources. This is something we would like to see replicated around the world. Coal-fired electricity generation is one of the most polluting ways to generate electricity. There are other ways, especially in a country like Pakistan, which is blessed with sunshine, with wind, and with the capacity to generate renewable power. On the larger scale, we were talking about women and girls and the effort to try and encourage adaptation and resilience. So a number of our development programs here in Pakistan and also globally are centered on, as I say, women and girls, but We have one in particular which is called Women's Voice in Leadership, where we are helping women to take their appropriate role in decision making, political decision making, local decision making, so that they are able to have an influence on the issues that affect them and their families and their communities most directly. We'll be launching the Pakistan part of that program very soon. We also have committed quite a significant sum of resources, $1.8 billion, to the Green Climate Fund and the Global Environment Fund that's part of the Paris Climate Action, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And through that, we are supporting private sector-led investment so that industries, commercial companies can integrate climate action plans into their own activities, and also encourage private sector to adopt climate-friendly production methods. It's something that is critical. Our economies, Pakistan, Canada, around the world, are based on industrial activity and also, as I said, primary sector industrial activity. So if we don't get it right at the ground level in our agriculture, in our industrial manufacturing activities, then the governments can do all of the work they want in the world, but it won't be that effective. So it is part of our action to try and encourage private sector engagement directly in climate action.
So at the end, what would you like to say about World Environment Day for our youth?
So I think there is a phrase that's used fairly often, I believe in it strongly, which is think globally and act locally. So it's the individual responsibility that we each have to reduce, reuse, recycle, to address our own energy usage, to take steps where we can to reduce our energy usage, to manage our waste effectively, don't litter, ensure separate your waste, make sure that it is treated appropriately. And it's also to engage with our communities, to try and encourage from the ground up, how do we address climate change? Go out, plant a tree, don't use plastic if you can avoid it. And frankly, pressure your local government, your national governments, global multilateral fora to take action on climate change. This is something we need to do for our own interest, something we need to do in all of our children's interest.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your time. Ms. Wendy Gilmore has a very wonderful message that think globally and act locally. And in every aspect of environmental activity, we need to keep that in mind. With the next program, we'll come up with another issue. Till then, goodbye.